So let's get started. So I'm going to show you how we select users who want to run their application on CSCS systems. So this is the agenda. I will start with a short introduction of CSCS for those of you who don't know what we do. And I will give an overview of the allocation process that every proposal needs to follow. I will continue with some simple guidelines to give more chance to your proposal to be accepted. And then I will end with a live demo, and I will try to answer your questions if you have any. So tips for new applicants. So you should know that CSCS is the Swiss National Supercomputing Center, and it has been one of the main player in the field of high-performance computing over the last 15 years. It is currently hosting one of the most powerful and most power-efficient system in the world. This system is called PISDINT. So it's number 6 in the list of the 500 most powerful supercomputers in the world, and number 9 in the last Green 500. So we are located, CSCS is located in Lugano, in the south part of Switzerland, and the computing resources we provide are open to scientists as well as users from the industry. So our regular user base consists of more than 100 research groups coming from various Swiss universities. And for example, we have users from ETH Zurich, from EPFL Lausanne, from University of Zurich, Basel, Geneva, and of course Ticino. The main research fields are chemistry and material science, physics, mechanics. You also have fluid dynamics, mathematics, earth, climate, and life science. So PISDINT is a CSCS main production system. It's a Cray system made of hybrid nodes, which means that each compute node hosts one CPU and one GPU. So in that case, it's one Intel CPU, Intel Sandy Bridge CPU, and one NVIDIA Kepler GPU. And all the nodes are interconnected with the Cray interconnect for a total of more than 42,000 cores and a little bit more than 5,000 GPUs, and for a total peak performance of nearly 8 petaflops. So I imagine that if you came to this webinar is that you would like to use that machine. So if you want to become a CSCS user, you can submit a request every 6 months. And the next deadline for submitting a project at CSCS is beginning of May 2015. And if your project gets approved, you will be able to start beginning of October 2015. So the submission process, for the submission process, your project must pass 3 different kind of reviews. The first one is a technical review, and during that review, we evaluate the feasibility of your proposal. Then your proposal is being reviewed by scientists from an international pool. That's the scientific review, and eventually the panel committee will rate your project and the reviews and make a final recommendation to CSCS. So if your project gets rejected, you will have a chance to resubmit a new proposal in October 2015 for a start in April of next year. So we have different kind of project, and if you want to get more information, you can go to a CSCS website, and you will find all what you need. Okay, guidelines, benchmarking, and scaling. So CSCS will give preference to projects that make use of highly scalable codes. So before submitting a proposal, you should start with collecting the data required for the technical review. So that means that your proposal should contain some benchmarking results and representative timings, and at least one performance file of your application. And the goal of this webinar, of course, is to show you how to collect this type of information. Okay, so the first step is to measure the execution time of your application. And there are many ways to measure it, but the most simple one is probably to time the API command and to report the real time that you get. So in that case, let's say that the API command is the equivalent of the cray equivalent of the MPI run command for people who never used the cray before, and you just have to put the time command before API run, and you will get the real time used by your application. So it is the responsibility of the applicant to show the scalability of his application, and what we want to know is that how well your code performs when you increase the number of parallel processing elements. In that case, it will be the number of cores or compute nodes. And the idea is to find the limit where your application stops getting faster. So in a typical user workflow, you will have to launch a parallel job, and because our system is shared with many users running many different jobs at the same time, we must use a job scheduler, and the scheduler used at CSCS is Slurm. And if you want to run a job, you must write a Slurm script and submit the script using the sbatch Slurm command. So a typical job script looks like this. In that case, I am trying to run a MPI only job, so I want to run 64 MPI tasks, and since I want to run on Daint, I have only 8 cores per compute node, so I'm setting n tasks per node equals 8. In that case, I don't want to use OpenMP threads, so I'm setting CPU per text equals to 1, and this is the same for the variable OMP num threads. I want to run my job for 1 hour. This is the name of my job, and I will redirect the output and the output of my job to a file called 0. And then you just have to repeat the same settings for the API run command line. And don't forget to put the time command in order to get timings. So of course you can adapt that job script to your needs, and you can find more information on CSCS user portal. Okay, so Let's take an example, and we will try to make a cost study to understand how much resources you need for your proposal. So the goal here is to find the right configuration for you, and I mean the right job size that will allow the computation to complete in a reasonable amount of time at a minimum cost in terms of compute node hours. So just a quick definition of compute node hours. A compute node hours is the time, it's the number of compute nodes multiplied by the time used by your application, and that's the unit that we use for accounting. So for example, let's say that I have a code here that I benchmarked on 50 steps, and that code takes a little bit less than, or a little bit more than 10 minutes on 16 nodes. Then it takes only less than 2 minutes on 100 nodes and less than 1 minute on 1000 nodes. And I know that for my proposal, I want to run 2000 steps. So I just have to multiply the timings by 48 to get the final number. So the question is, how many compute node hours should I ask? And the answer is, it really depends on what kind of user you are. So let's say that you are a very impatient user and you don't want to wait. So you want your simulation to run as fast as possible. And in that case, you will run 1000 nodes and multiply by the number of steps, and you will get the result of your simulation. If you will get the result of your simulation after 15 minutes, and that will cost you around 250 compute node hour. Okay. So that's good, that's pretty fast, but that's also pretty expensive. And you could move to a different scenario, which is use less node. And in that case, you will you will have to be a little bit more patient, because you will get the result of your simulation only after 8 hours, which is a bit more than 15 minutes. But you will spend only half of only 100 compute node hours. And actually, if you submit another job in parallel, let's say that your jobs are not dependent, you could run exactly twice as many steps as user number one for more or less the same amount of compute node hours, because 128 plus 128 is more or less 250, and here you have 246. But you could also try to do like user number 3, which is a mix of number 1 and number 2. In that case, you will get the result of your simulation after 1 hour for more or less the same amount of compute node hours. So that's faster than 8 hours. So that's faster than user number 2. And you can still run a second job to get more computation done. So if you are really impatient, you would like to try to run with as many nodes as possible, and in that case you could run with 2000 nodes. But the result here in that case is very expensive, because you are close to 1000 compute node hours, and actually you will have to wait more time before getting the solution of your simulation compared to that user. So it's up to you to find the right configuration, and it has to be a balance between the time to solution and the cost of the simulation. Okay. So here I took, as an example, I run my code and compare the timings between 1 and 32 compute nodes. That is between 8 and 256 cores. That's pure MPI or MPI and OpenMP code. I have two versions of the code, and the results shows here that, okay, the execution times of both versions of the code decrease with the number of nodes, and the MPI only version of the code here in yellow is a little bit slower than the version that use MPI and OpenMP. So it can be sometimes difficult to find the right configuration just by looking at a scaling curve. So it can be made easier with two commonly used performance metrics. The first one is the speed up, and the second one is the efficiency. And so speed up is defined by the following formula. It's just the ratio of reference time, usually the time of your simulation on one node over the execution time on several compute nodes. And a perfect code will scale with the number of compute nodes, but of course that's very difficult to achieve. Another performance metric is the efficiency, and it's just the ratio of the speed up over the number of compute nodes. And it's the same. A perfect code will have an efficiency of 100% or 1, and I will consider a code with an efficiency greater than 50% as a scalable code. So the idea here, if you go back to my example, is to find the best configuration in terms of compute node. So it's time for a little quiz here. We know that the time decrease with the number of nodes, but we don't know exactly what exactly we should choose. So if you look at the speed up or at the efficiency, you can see that the code scales. In that case, the MPI code, the MPI only version of the code scales probably up to 4 nodes, and the MPI and OpenMP version of the code scales, I would say, up to, at a good scaling, up to only 8 nodes. So there is probably no reason to run with more than 8 nodes for that configuration. Otherwise, you will just waste resources and time. So if we move to a configuration with a little bigger problem size, you will see the same kind of result. In that case, you should the MPI and OpenMP version of the code is faster than the MPI version of the code, and in that case, I will say that the MPI only version of the code scales only to, let's say, 64 nodes, and probably the same for the MPI and OpenMP version of the code. Okay, so how much can you ask? So as I said before, the allocation units are in node hours. So you have to take the timings that your simulation takes, and you multiply that with the number of nodes, and you will get the you will get the amount to request for your proposal in compute node hours. You should be aware that even if you don't use all the CPU cores of the node, because sometimes you need more memory on the node, or even if you don't use the GPU of the node, you will still be charged full node hours. So it's always better to use the GPU and use all the cores of the CPU. So as a general rule, we would like to see in your proposal performance data from jobs that run on PSDent, and for a problem similar to the one you explained in your proposal. So that means we would like to see results for job size that best matches your production runs. The scaling result should be based on the performance of the full application. You should compare results from the same machine and the same simulation, and it's not fair to run simplified models or preferential configuration. So there are many ways for presenting bad performance in a good looking way. We know the techniques, and we also know that sometimes it can be difficult to get the numbers right. So if you have a problem, feel free to contact us at help@cscs.ch. Okay. An important part of the proposal, especially for the technical review, is to explain why the code stops scaling. So in a typical user workflow, you will compile your code on the Cray. So the first step will be to connect to the system, and you have to go first. You have to SSH first to Ella, and then you can SSH to Daint. Then you can set up your programming environment. On the Cray, we have 4 different compilers available. The first one, the Cray compiler is loaded by default, but if you prefer to use the GNU or the Intel or the PGI compiler, you can just module swap from one compiler to the other. This is very important to use that environment because Cray uses some scripts to simplify the way you compile your code, and that's Cray wrappers. So if you have a Fortran code, you should use the FTN wrapper. If you have a C code, you should use the CC wrapper. And if you have a C++ code, you should use uppercase CC compilation wrapper. And then if you have some dependencies for your code with some libraries, the Cray system comes with a lot of optimized libraries, and you just need to load the library that you need. So in that case, you could, let's say that you need a netcdf library. You can load that version 4.3.2 of the library, and the wrapper will automatically detect that the module file is loaded, and it will compile your code with the library automatically. Okay, so then, as usual, you can compile your code using make or CMake. And then, as I said before, you can submit your job using the Slurm commands. If you need more info, you can go to the user website. So to get a performance report, you need to recompile and rerun your code with the performance tool from Cray. So we have a modified version of the Cray performance tool that is called Perflight, and it will automatically insert some timers inside your code, and it supports all the compilers, so the Cray, Intel, GNU, and PGI compiler. And it should be rather easy to use because you should just module use that directory and then just load the performance tool. In that case, if you know that your code doesn't use the GPU, either it's a MPI or OpenMP code, you just load the perflight/622 module file. If you use CUDA, then you just need to load the perflight/CUDA module file. And if you use OpenACC, you just need to load the perflight/OpenACC module file. And when you are ready, you just need to recompile your code. So you don't need to modify your source code. You don't need to modify the source of your code. You don't need to modify your makefile. You just need to recompile. You will get then an executable that I will show you how it works during the demo. And then you can just resubmit your job and to get the performance report files at the end of your job. So let's go back to my example. So if you remember, I was saying that my code was having a good scaling up to 8 nodes, which is not very much, but we could try to have a look at what the performance tool is telling us to try to understand why the scaling stops. So here I've put a snapshot of the report that you will get for 3 different job size. So the first one on 8 compute node, 16 compute node, and 32 compute node. And typically that's what you get from the tool. So what you see here is the list of the most time-consuming function in your code. So on 8 nodes, you can see that overall, you spent 93% of the total time doing some computation inside the user code, and I spent only 4% doing communication, and typically it was non-blocking communication. If I move to a bigger job size than 16 compute node, I will get the same kind of results. So 80% in the CPU, the user part of the code, 11% doing communication. Here we see that we are beginning to see some timings from the OpenMP parallelization. And if you move to the biggest job size, same thing, you see that the OpenMP part and the communication part are also increasing. So as a summary, you can see that above 8 compute nodes, we spend less and less time doing computation. The communication time increase, and apparently the OpenMP synchronization time is taking too much time. Okay, so here I am on my laptop. I will go to Ella first. I don't know if you can see what I'm typing. And then I will go to Daint. Then I will move to my test case. So in that case, I want to compile with the GNU compiler, and by default we use the Cray compiler, so I need to change my environment. To use the GNU environment. And you can see now that I am in the program GNU environment, and it's using GCC 4.8. Okay, so I want to compile my code in that case. I will compile MPI and OpenMP for 64 MPI tasks. So you can see I'm using the FTN wrapper because this is a Fortran code, and I'm using the GCC flags for optimization and OpenMP. Okay, so now we have an executable. So this is my executable. So what I need before submitting my job is to write a Slurm script. So let me show you how my script is written. So in that case, I want to run 64 MPI tasks, and I want to use OpenMP actually. So I want to use 2 OpenMP threads. So I'm setting CPU per task equals 2, and I'm also setting the number of OpenMP threads to 2. And since I want the compute node to be full, I will run 4 MPI tasks per node. So that's a total of 8 processes per node. I will run for 10 minutes, and I will redirect I recompiled the code, and I was showing to you the job script, what we need to use to submit the job. So let's submit the job using the sbatch command. Okay, my job has been submitted. So Slurm is telling me that my job is running using 16 nodes. And if I look at the output, okay, it's already done. So in that case, because I run my executable without the performance tool, I'm just getting a normal output. I would say I run for 200 time steps. I'm doing a little bit of validation of the results, but the verification is successful, and my code completed successfully. And this is the time that I'm using for the scalability here. Okay, so now let's recompile with the performance tool. So what you need to do first is to modify your environment. Yep. So as I said on the slide, you just need to load the tool. Okay, so since I'm not using the GPU, I will just load the default version of the module file, and I will recompile the code. So as you can see, nothing really changed. I'm still using the Crave wrapper with the same optimization flag or the same compilation flag. But you will see that at the end, I will get a little message from Crepat saying that this is a special kind of executable. So here you can see that it created a sampling version of the executable where it will profile different parts of the code, the MPI calls, the OpenMP calls, the IO calls, and some other calls. So let's run the job and see what happens. So this is my new executable. It has exactly the same name as before. So I don't need to change my job script. Oops. Okay, job submitted. The job is running on 16 nodes. And if I look at the output, well, the tool is telling you that it's using a instrumented version of the executable. The execution is a success. And you will see, so the simulation is over, and you see that at the end, I get some performance output. So you see that I have my job output here, but I also get 3 different files. A text file, RPT file for the performance report, that's a text file. AP2 file, you don't really need to worry about that file, and MPI rank reordering file, you can also ignore that file. The important file is the report file or the job output, and actually what you will get at the end of the job output is exactly the content of that report file. So for your proposal, you can attach the report file or the job output. It will be the same for us. So let's have a look at the job output. This is the output of my job, and then at the end of the job, I get some performance statistics. I will not go into too much into details, but what I put on my slide was exactly that part of the performance report. And as we've seen before here, you can see how much time you spend doing computation. That's the user time. So in that case, I spent a little bit more than 50% of the total time doing computation. Then I spent 22% time doing communication, and then the rest of the time, most of the rest of the time was spent in OpenMP. Okay, so I will go back to my presentation. So GPU codes. So in the case of you have a code that can make use of the GPU, the workflow is more or less the same. So in that case, I took as an example a code that use MPI, OpenMP, and CUDA on Peasdent. And if you compare the timings of that code between 64 compute nodes and 1000 compute nodes, using 1 GPU per node, you can see a good scaling up to 200 compute nodes, I would say. So is it a result that we can confirm with the performance tool? Yes. If you look at the performance report, so in that case, it means you will probably need to load the CUDA version of the per-flight module file and then resubmit your job. The only drawback is that because of the way the compute node is configured, if you want to use the performance tool, you cannot use more than one MPI task per node talking to the GPU. So that's a limitation. We are aware of it, and we are working on finding a tool that will support more than one process per node talking to the GPU. So usually, if you have a code that have more than one process talking to the GPU, then you must enable the CUDA proxy, and you can do that by setting the cray CUDA MPS variable to 1. So that's what you can do if you are not using the tool. If you are using the performance tool, then you must set the CUDA proxy. You must disable the proxy, and you must set the cray CUDA MPS variable to 0. Okay, that said, let's try to have a look at two performance reports. So it's typically the same table. So you have a part for the MPI. So on 100 nodes, I'm spending almost 35% of the time doing communication, then 32% doing computation, 17% doing running on the GPU with CUDA, and then also I have synchronization for the MPI part. So in total, I'm spending 34% plus 10% doing communication. So that's why I put 45 here in the table. And the same thing for a job run on 500 nodes. So I spent, in that case, 30% of the time on the GPU, 26% doing computation on the CPU, and the rest doing communication. So if you look at the summary table here, you spent, while the percentage of communication remains relatively stable with the number of compute nodes, the time spent on the GPU in CUDA kernel seems to increase with the number of compute nodes. So that's probably why the scaling stops. Of course, we do not expect you to do a full performance analysis of your code for a proposal, but this kind of information and this kind of data is still important to us, and it will allow us to have a better understanding of the performance of your code on the system. Okay, so what's the conclusion? So I think I was clear enough. This is the first webinar that we do, so we can certainly improve things. But as a summary, for the technical part of your proposal, you should always provide some timings about your application. We need to see also at least one performance report file. And it will also help us a lot if you make clear the link between your scientific goals and your resource request, because it's not always very clear to us. And if you don't do that, then there is a risk that your proposal will not be accepted. There is always a possibility to have a feedback from us about your proposal if you send us, if you contact us well in advance. If you contact me one day before the deadline, I'm not sure I will be able to help you. Okay, so this is the last slide. That will be, it's just an opportunity for us to show you what will happen at CSCS during the year. We will have a lot of new exciting events in 2015. The first one will be a course about visualization using Python in HPC. It's a new course and it will be in April. You can, if you want, you can already register on the CSCS website. Then we will have our usual annual PASC conference. This year it will be in Zurich, and we will have the user meeting during that conference. Just after, in June, we will have an introduction course to CUDA and OpenACC, followed by the Euro Hackathon, which is a workshop for people who want to port their code to the GPU using OpenACC. You will have more details on the website, and the deadline for registration is the end of March. We have the typical summer school for students who want to learn HPC. And then we will have a course about C++ for HPC in November. We also have two new types of events. That's the orientation course. The first one will be in May in Lausanne, and the second one will be in October in Zurich. No? And of course, if you want to organize a course at your university, feel free to contact us so we can discuss. Okay, I'm done. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I will take your question if you have any.